Hello and welcome to Chatting with Charlie. Today this episode is going to be a tiny little bonus episode because I've had lots of thoughts that I didn't want to make into a full-size episode. It's more about how am I doing and what are my thoughts about the world and what are the things that keep me up at night. Life's a bit weird, isn't it? I'm not really very well right now, but there's nothing tangibly wrong with me. If you sent me to the hospital and did all of the tests that you could, you wouldn't be able to measure my pain. It's more of a crisis of hope, a crisis of meaning. Our lives can be wonderful for the mere reason that we have hope and have created meaning. We're self-aware enough to realize that there is a past, a present, and a future. We know that our actions now affect the future and that each moment is fleeting. And this fleetingness is what makes each moment special. Because if something were forever, it in turn would be worthless. But we also know that this means that everything we do has consequences. Every action has an infinite amount of potential outcomes, and we cannot with certainty know what will happen. And the more we start to ponder, the more negative outcomes we see. And then the negative possibilities leave us paralyzed because we're aware that no matter what we do, something bad will inevitably happen. Because nothing is ever all good, and good and bad depend on circumstances anyway. But if nothing bad ever happened, then the good would be meaningless too, because we know that everything is fleeting and will end. We feel an insatiable hunger for making the best out of everything. But what does this mean, the best? And we become so worried that we're not living life's full potential that we forget to live at all. I know that if I make sacrifices now, I will reap the benefits later. So I make sacrifices to ultimately live life to its full potential. The only problem is I don't know what this means. I don't think anyone else does either. It's a nice thought that it must get better because it's hard now. It makes current pain easier to bear because why would we go through the suffering if we didn't think it would pay off in the end? But then when we have a crisis of hope, this idea becomes a bit shit. Because when the hope that all this suffering will bring some redemption later on is gone, then the current pain becomes more suffocating than ever. And we don't see a way out of the current pain, and our pain now is worthless anyway, because how can we change the world? For we want to change the world, believe that what we does has some effect, preferably for the greater good, but we need to at least make a mark. Because inevitably we realize that we are as fleeting as these moments themselves. So we do everything to try and leave some impact to not be forgotten. And we think our own thoughts are the most profound ever, and we would change the world if only our voices were heard instead of the ones in power. It isn't our fault that we don't have billions of followers or any other major influence, after all. The odds are just stacked against us. If only we had the chance. We strive for greatness because mediocrity isn't enough. The opposite of great is ordinary, and the problem with ordinary is that it doesn't leave a mark. And then we have to think about fleetingness again. And as our world revolves around us and our experiences and thoughts, it's impossible to even imagine what the world would look like without us. And that's part of the reason why we're so scared of death. It's because we're not able to imagine a world without us in it. But if we can at least make a difference, we won't be forgotten, and then we're not as fleeting as the moment which, as I write this, has already passed, and a new moment begun. And I'm scared that my moment will be replaced by a new moment. without anything ever changing.